true pioneer of transhumanism, somebody who has demonstrated extraordinary dedication over, let's say, many decades to questions such as how to uplift human freedom, how to give humans more choice, more morphological freedom, how to safely pursue human enhancement, and lots more. I would like to introduce to you the Executive Director of Humanity Plus, Natasha Vita.
Hola, buenas tardes. Let's get my presentation up, please. While they're preparing my presentation, let me just say that when you're the last speaker in a session, your mind starts moving very quickly, and you start analyzing the data, the information that the previous speakers have already given. And it's almost like you want to change your talk, at least I do. And so if I had a little bit more time, I would change my talk to address some of the issues that Sarah brought up, and so articulately and beautifully so, as well as José Cordeiro in his opening speech. Very important to understand the ethics, but that's something transhumanism has been doing for a very long time. Understanding the pros and cons of technological change and existence risk. What does it mean when AI has sapience and sentience? These are all very fascinating topics. And thinking about AI, it's so abstract. What does it look like? What does machine learning look like? What does AGI look like? In speaking about this, it's so crucial to show what the programming language looks like. What does C++ look like? C#, Python. And then we can start seeing that, the differentiations in these languages. But that's another topic, and I'm going to stick with mine. So I'm going to bring about longevity studies, and I'll explain why. I'm a professor. I teach ethics. I teach innovation, and I teach the future. But more importantly, I'm also a scientist. I have a scientific breakthrough in long-term memory. But before that, I was a designer, and I love performative arts, and I love the idea of AI in the arts and writing stories and creating. AI has been painting since the 1960s. Harold Cohen, someone whose work I know very well from the 1960s and 70s, created the first robot that actually painted. The paintings are in the Museum of Modern Art in San Francisco. So it's really interesting, the historical leaps in these ideas, but that was so abstract back then. But today, it's right here and now, as Sarah said. So in longevity studies, we have to include these ideas about the consequences of what we're doing and what longevity actually means. So to effectively study longevity, we need to understand where we are today, the currents in biomedical interventions and biotechnological innovations, and where they're headed, where are they going, what is tomorrow. We also need to understand that even though we've come a long way, we're only partially sufficient. And that is what concerns me. So there's a gap there. And as an innovator, my aim and my goal and my natural impetus is to try to bridge gaps, figure out solutions to these gaps. And longevity studies is one of them. To assess it clearly, we need to understand the alternatives to today's biomedical interventions and biotechnological innovations. They're not working. We're still dying moment to moment. We're still diseased. I'm still limping. Many of us have cancer. Many of us are losing a little bit of our memories and our flexibility, and this is all going on as we're sitting here using our smart devices, connecting through the internet, doing all these things with virtual reality and augmented reality and gamification of just about everything. And it's marvelous. Longevity is about the success of these biomedical interventions and biological and biotechnological innovations, but they're faltering. They're not enough. And to me, that's very worrisome because the most beautiful aspect of who we are is in our brain, how our minds function, our personalities, our identities. How lovely we are as people. And we lose that as we age, and those memories get lost and forgotten. And to think that we're housing our most precious muscle, our brain, and our most precious asset, our identities, our personas, our agency, in this faltering, clumsy, aging body is very frightening to me. I'm not afraid of death. I'm more concerned that this body is faltering and my mind is going to continue on, or vice versa. So we need to think, what's next? Now, I want to say, and pause for a moment, I truly respect the longevity industry. I've been a part of it for many years. I've worked in it for many years. I understand a lot of the therapies, from stem cells to genetic engineering, gene therapies, mostly risky. CRISPR, not created by humans, created by nature itself, showed us a programming language that we did not invent, we did not create as humans. We learned it from nature. It was a small, not even animal, not even a bacteria that first used CRISPR. And some very smart people identified it and used it to set the standard for what we call today as CRISPR with gene editing. And that's quite marvelous that it came from nature. But we're unable to solve the problems in the long run, so what do? My suggestion with longevity studies is to consider where we're going in the future, and not to think of it as something far future, but something that needs to be worked on today. We need to study it, think about the ethics of it, think about the potential, the foresight of it, and think that the future belongs to those of us who prepare for it, because we want to. So again, let me repeat, to adequately study longevity, we need to know where we are currently in biomedical interventions and biotechnological innovations, and how to navigate the possible alternatives. What else can we be doing? Okay, let me go forward and back. So, I suggest 3 options. And those options are not cybernetic, but they're beautifully designed through the programming language of AI and nanotechnology and machine learning and the human imagination, the wisdom that affords the creations that we invent. Okay, so the 3 options, I think, will be, and this is not a prediction because I don't make predictions, this is based on some serious research. The 3 options are nanomedicine, not genetic engineering, cryonics, not dying, and whole body prosthetics, and I'll explain why. Maybe I have to. Okay, and I'm going to read as you watch my movie there. What if you could engineer your body in every way imaginable, specifically for healthy longevity? This would take us beyond the current biomedical and biotechnological advances and toward a focused approach in flexing our mental muscle and applying foresight to what we considered obtainable, unnatural, magical, and even, what do we call it? Simply magic. Medicine today was thought of magic yesterday. The future body that I designed in 1996 as a whole body prosthetic, I truly think that it is an alternative option. But we're not going to get there just because we want another body because this one isn't good enough. It's because we need it because accidents can happen. And again, our neurological makeup, our neurons in the performative actions decline over time, and they must be backed up. They must be transferred into systems that are far less vulnerable than a human body, and even a whole body prosthetic. So, in unpacking this as cleanly and concisely as I possibly can, you might ask, why nanomedicine? Why do I think it's important? And why do I think that it far exceeds any of the biomedical therapies that we have today? And I think it's because on the molecular scale, and then on the nanomolecular scale, our bodies work like incredible functioning, communicating connectomic machines, communicating messages, transmitting messages back and forth through our central nervous system to our peripheral nervous system, forming commands and instructions. They need help. So nanomedicine, according to Robert Freitas, is, and I'll read his quote, nanomedical biocompatibility includes all the mechanical, physiological, immunological, and biomedical responses of the human body to the introduction of medical nano devices. Okay. Consider invisible, almost, well, invisible to the naked eye, but tiny, tiny smart machines going into your body like vaccines, working with your body continually 24/7, repairing the damage that goes on nonstop. And the damage does go on nonstop. So these tiny nanorobots could work in teams or in swarms or as independent contractors to go in and clean up a little bit of the mess. Maybe you are precancerous. Maybe you might have basal cell carcinoma or squamous carcinoma, but you don't know it yet. These would know it in advance. Maybe you have irritable bowel syndrome. Maybe you have erectile dysfunction. Maybe you have a slowing down of cognitive properties due to fog in your mind. These nanorobots would know it far beyond your central nervous system, could deliver that data to your brain for you to go, oh, aha, I need to go to the doctor. So these nanorobots would become part of the human body. So you might say, well, they're not natural. How unnatural? I don't want a robot floating around in my body. I'm human, I'm biological. But consider, the human being has never been a single entity. We have always existed with other materials. For example, mitochondria. We would not have energy, ATP, without mitochondria. The mitochondria is crucial to our daily lives and our energy, our ability to walk and talk and think and do. So we coexist from the earliest stages of our hominid days with another life form that doesn't have our DNA, but we communicate. There's a compatibility. And as Robert Freitas, who coined the term nanomedicine and is the person who's written the books and the ideas about nanomedicine, he understands, and he's a genius as far as computer science and understanding robotics. He understands also biology and understands that without that compatibility, we're in trouble. So the most important thing for him is that there be a biomechanical compatibility. Nanomedicine would keep us vital, undiseased, regenerating, revigorating, renewing our cellular mechanism, not only on the individual cellular and tissue basis, but also the organs and the communication between our brain to the organs continuously. It would find if you have too many white blood cells or not enough white bloods. It's be doing this nonstop. I think that, in my view, is what is needed to be studied now. Now, is the investment in this longevity industry, investing is millions and billions of dollars in nanomedicine? Not quite yet, but that's on the periphery. My second suggestion is human cryopreservation. Well, you might say, well, Dr. Vita, you're contradicting yourself. You just said we just need nanorobots and that's going to solve the problem, far better than gene therapies. Well, things happen. I hurt my foot, so I'm limping around, I'm gimping. But it'll get better over time. Things happen, we fall down. We could get hit by a car, one of the taxis in the street that zip by 50 miles an hour down these very narrow cobblestone roads. Anything can happen at any time, and most of us have experienced something in our lives, an unintended consequence, something that happened, and we're going, what? WTF, it happens. Let's be serious about this. We're not secure in any of our environments or conditions, so cryobiology's field of human cryopreservation is the best option we have. So that means you go into chronic suspension. What does that mean? It means you go into a reduced temperature. Your body is suspended in cryopreservation till a later time, when future medicine will be able to bring a person back. Okay, so science fiction turns science fact. We've seen this over and over and over again. And Jose explained this, and so did Sarah. We are seeing that what was once magic becomes medicine, what was once science fiction becomes science fact. And then we adapt to it, just like our devices. So cryonics is a field that you might say, well, no human's been brought back yet. No one's proved it. It's fake science. It's not real. But that's not true at all. Simple animals have been revived, have been brought back to life, not only by Dr. Cynthia Kenyon, Dr. Judith Campisci, and many others, including myself. In fact, I know through my experience and my published paper that long-term memory persists through chronic preservation, through the vitrification of the cryopreservation process. My work was with very simple, small animals. I trained them to perform a task based on Pavlovian technique of food and chemical. So when they were babies, larvae just out of the cells, they identified food with a certain smell. And when they grew up to adult stage, tested them to see if they would, in the Petri dish, go to the food that had that same chemical relationship with the food, and they jettisoned right there to that food. And then I vitrified them. I put them in chronic suspension, brought them back to life one by the hundreds, and tested them. In all my assays, and there were many assays, the majority, I would say 90%, if not more, went directly to the food where the chemical was. Not to the food without the chemical, but to the food with the chemical. Okay, that proved long-term memory persists. In a simple animal, the human brain is far more complex. And so there's a big issue. That's why we need more funding in cryonics and we need more research. But one thing that I will say that's absolutely fantastic is Alcor Life Extension Foundation, the logo's right there, has a marvelous explanation and evidence of neurosuspendees' brains being in a very healthy condition for vitrified process, meaning the concern about lowering temperature in chronic preservation is cellular damage, the fracturing of cells like ice, cracking and crystallizing. These brains were scanned with a CT scan, state of the art, through the aluminum dewar to check the viability of the state of the brain, and there was no evidence of fracturing, of cracking, of the concern from the lower temperature, the crystallization. So that's good news. It doesn't prove that it works 100%, but it's very good news that the methodology, the technology and science of cryonics for cryopreservation of humans is pretty darn good at this stage, but it's just at the beginning. Just think of the milestones with nanotechnology that could happen in the not too distant future. The third item on my list that I think makes this triad really nice from looking at longevity studies and thinking about what technology could actually keep people vital, regenerate the body, rejuvenate it, repair all the damage that's going on nonstop, nanomedicine. Okay, then the next step, what if something happens? You get hit, you're in an airplane accident, something, an unintended consequence. Cryonics, cryopreservation, that's a good backup plan. Today's biomedical technology leaves off where cryonics or 21st century, late 21st century medicine will pick up. And there's some critical rationalism there, some positive practical optimism there, some evidence that what was thought unnatural could occur. The third element to my triad is whole body prosthetics. And so again, you might say, well, Natasha, come on. You talk about nanomedicine being better than gene therapy or genetic engineering and all the different therapies that people are investing millions and billions of dollars in today. And then you talk about, well, no, we need a backup plan in case something goes wrong. Well, good. So human cryopreservation is the option. So why on earth would you say we need an alternative body? Because we do. Okay. Now, again, I'm going to step back for a moment and say that I love my body. I'm athletic. I work out at the gym. I like to show off my muscles, and I might do it tomorrow. But the point is that this body is faltering, and I want another one. So I designed in 1996 something called the first future human, or primo post-human. And I designed it with nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence, stem cells, also looking at different prosthetic protocols at the time, and some of the basic understanding, especially about the metabrain. Remember that muscle, our best muscle, our favorite muscle, our brains. But back then, half of these ideas I have in this illustration, this schema for the future body, weren't available. Think how far we've come. This is in 1996. So today, a lot of this is possible. So one thing I want to focus on here, time, David?
2 minutes.
I'll take 5. So I waited long enough. I'm going to take 5. So
5 minutes.
Thank you. What's interesting here is the metabrain. Okay, take a look here. I have a metabrain there, and I also have cyber consciousness. This was the Internet of Things hadn't come about yet. We had the World Wide Web, remember back then, and the dial-up, and then we got the Internet, and before the Internet of Things. So this is again in 1996. But it was the metabrain that really I loved. I don't know what's going on there. I didn't coin the term metabrain. It was coined by Dr. Max Moore sitting up there, and also Dr. Greg Fay. Is Greg speaking? No. Dr. Greg Fay, whose medical therapy Max explored, maybe he'll talk about. But it's the metabrain that's really consequential here. Our memories are essential. Thus my research in long-term memory with cryopreservation of a simple animal. Now, think about who's one of the hottest tech stars today. Elon Musk, right? Ray Kurzweil, Martin Rothblatt, to name a few. Elon Musk came up with Neuralink. What does Neuralink do? It helps patients with Parkinson's, dementia, memory loss. But also thinking about Neuralink, what's the other? Uploading, cross-loading, downloading. We need to back up our memories. And that was my directive with doing the metabrain. We need to back up our memories because our memories are precious. If anyone's had someone in their family with dementia, you know what happens. It's not pretty. So backing up our memories is crucial to a whole body prosthetic. A whole body prosthetic would not only be an alternative body, it would be an alternative body for cryo patients when they're revived from human chronic preservation. It also is a body that you could use to go into cyberspace, out into outer space, into gamification, into virtual reality, augmented reality, and all the new environments that we haven't yet built. But what is exciting about the metabrain is that it is a connection. It's the connectome of thoughts. And this is why it's so crucial and essential that we consider ways to back up our memory. So the metabrain is something that's not too far in the distance. The term uploading is well known to many in science fiction. More in computer science, it's called whole brain emulation, a term coined by Dr. Randall Cohen. Dr. Andrew Sandberg, who's speaking at this conference, has taken the metabrain and ideas about whole brain emulation and uploading and morphological freedom to an existential risk concept of why it's needed and the pros and cons of thinking about the ethics of it, which is essential. But nevertheless, without the metabrain, we're in trouble. So longevity studies respects where we are today, again with biomedical interventions and biotechnological innovations, but says that there's an alternative, and we must use foresight. We must use the wisdom of thinking and look at the history and think about the possible futures, and remember that not one path, one lane, one way is the only way. We need to diversify and think of how the different modalities will come together and better fuse the protection of life over time. And in closing, I just want to say, to tie it into the title Jose gave me, it is our future, it is our evolution, it is our continuous driving force of our DNA, to use our minds, to imagine, and to continue to think what the future might hold because, again, and lastly, magic turns into medicine, and what is unnatural turns into natural, and what is thought of as fiction turns into reality. Thank you.
We have time for one audience question. Who in the audience has a short, burning question for the Executive Director of Humanity Plus?
I was waiting for Max Moore up there to ask me a question.
No, Max is allowed to ask.
I'll ask a question.
Anybody in the audience?
Anyone? Oh, yes, please, go ahead.
Let's get a microphone up there. Is that possible? It's coming. We may not hear you over the audio.
Brilliant. Okay.
Say your name.
Hi, my name is Laurens. I'm here with my student team, Hart. I was wondering, out of the technologies you outline in this talk, which one do you think will arrive earliest or has the best potential?
Superb, thank you very much. The one that, let's say, would arrive the earliest is already here. It's human cryopreservation is here today. There's hundreds of patients who are currently in chronic suspension, not only at Alcor, but at other facilities, although Alcor is the largest and has the most advanced science and technology. So cryonic preservation, number one. Nanomedicine is being developed by Dr. Robert Freitas in Canada at the moment. His new book is coming out soon. It's his second book on nanomedicine. It's a heavy text, so you mathematicians will enjoy it very much, and you engineers. And I would say the whole body prosthetic is going to be around the corner because just think about the Paralympics. How amazing is it that people walk around after wars or injuries with incredible prosthetic limbs that function with robotics seamlessly, haptic systems seamlessly, and narrow AI seamlessly that also function with the core neurological functioning of the brain through the central nervous system. This is amazing, and not only that, as a designer, the prosthetics that people wear, they're not hiding them anymore. They're not embarrassed. They're showing them off. Women with prosthetic legs, I mean, a rock star is showing off the beauty of that metal design leg. There are people that have Harley Davidson symbols on their legs. There are prosthetic arms that can feel the coolness of a cup of iced tea or the heat of a cup of coffee. This is amazing. So what we're looking at, the next stage is in prosthetics, based on largely the work of incredible designer Hugh Herr. If you've never seen his work, it's Hugh Herr, H-E-R-R. He's a mountain climber. He lost his legs in an accident. He probably has 20 different pairs of legs for a different type of rock climbing or mountain climbing. Amazing designs. So I would say prosthetics is right around the corner, probably before nanomedicine really takes off, but it needs nanomedicine to work fully. Thank you. I want to make a short announcement. Excuse me, David and Jose and Sarah and the audience. I'd like to say that for those attendees, our precious attendees who have signed up for the conference and are streaming or not streaming, it is my pleasure as Executive Director of Humanity Plus, along with our Board of Directors and our advisors, to offer you a year membership to Humanity Plus. It's our, thank you. And this will give you access to our email list, which is heady. It'll give you access to the H Plus Academy, which we run bi-monthly, and discounts at our conferences, and also to the Transhumanist Studies program, which is an online course. And every Monday and Friday, I hold a 2-hour brainstorming session on the future, and it gets really heady. So with no further ado, thank you very much.